Welcome to this week's episode of Tea with B. Joining me today are the co-producers of Rock Me Amadeus, American soprano Alyson Cambridge, and rock guitarist, producer, composer Tony Bruno. Welcome.
Thank you. Nice to be here.
And of course, we're all on Zoom. Let's start with where the name of the show came from. Who wants to address that?
I mean, it's an iconic song from an Austrian artist called Falco. But the funny thing is, it was the last choice of a million names trying to figure out how to, embody what we do, which is basically rocking classical music and taking classical music and, taking rock music and adapting it to a classical style and everything. And like, there's got to be a name that has something to do with, iconic classical composer. And then Alyson, like at the 11th hour, was like, I know this sounds ridiculous and it sounds so like, but what about Rock Me Amadeus? I'm like, duh.
It was, we literally had a list probably of maybe 20 to 30 different names that we kept going back and forth about, Rebellion Symphony, Rock Me, just so many different things. And I was actually scrolling through Instagram one day and the hashtag Rock Me Amadeus came up. And I went, whoa. I said, how did this not occur to us? That is our show. That is our show in a name. And I texted Tony and I was like, what do you think? And he said, damn it, I wish I thought of that. So, but I didn't think of it. I saw it on Instagram and yeah.
Yeah, it was a great oversight by me because my wife is actually German and she's like, that's a song that it's like a graduation song for them.
I understand Falco, that was a hit with that song, in the 80s? Sometime in the 80s.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And it actually charted in America, even though he was singing in German. So,
well, they had two versions. They had the English version as well.
Okay, so I've only heard the German version, so doing in my research. Alyson, let's start with you. You've been on some really famous stages as an opera singer, from the Metropolitan Opera House, the Carnegie Hall, Washington National Opera, at the Kennedy Center, London's Royal Albert Hall, Deutsche Oper Berlin. I'm not sure I'm pronouncing that right.
The Deutsche Oper Berlin, yeah.
And Vienna.
Staatsoper in the Konzerthaus.
Okay. Do you have a favorite venue?
Ooh, that's tough. I would say probably because it's maybe like the most iconic in the opera world, the Metropolitan Opera. I mean, I made my debut there when I was 24, and I was just a kid, and I was just so like, wow, this is really happening, and it's such a huge, tall space,
Mm-hmm.
and the biggest opera house, and New York's my home, and so that was pretty much my home company if I were to have one certainly for the first half of my career, and then it's been super spread out. But yeah, I love the Met and the chandeliers and the red velvet walls, and it's really special. Yeah,
it is a gorgeous venue.
It is.
How do you think everybody's dealing with COVID and not being able to have shows?
I will say it's really it's been incredibly tough on our industry. And different people have had different reactions to it. I was actually speaking with a couple of my colleagues the other day. I was supposed to be in 2 weeks, heading to North Carolina to do an opera about Martin Luther King called I Dream. And we were just fingers crossed that we would get to do it in the spring. And, they had socially distanced planning for the audience and all that. And at the end of the day, having, 50-something orchestra members sitting in a pit playing together, that's just not a reality that we can have right now. And so, when all of my jobs, pretty much for all of 2020 and most of 2021, got canceled, it was a real gut punch. I will say that. And I didn't feel like singing or creating or making music or doing anything for probably about a month. almost 2. I didn't even practice. I was just so in shock that what I have been doing for the past 20 years, which has been on the road, show after show after show, different city, that was coming to a screeching halt. And sort of then having to figure out what my new reality would be. And I know a lot of my colleagues went through the same thing. And truly the biggest silver lining was that, Tony and I, we've been talking about creating this show. And here I was now actually having all the time in the world to focus solely on creating this show. And my creative juices finally started getting going again, which was great because it's like, no way, we're actually going to make something. We are going to be able to create art. But not being on stage has been, it's tough. I recorded actually with the Portland Symphony, a holiday concert, and that was the first time I've been on stage with orchestra members. Everybody's socially distanced, except for, of course, the wind players who had to be unmasked. Everybody was masked. I was behind a plexiglass screen and shielded. But even singing and just having cameras recording me, I felt like, oh, but I'm performing again. This is so great. And so I miss it. But I think we'll be back, and I think we'll be back better and stronger than ever.
And Tony, how's it been for you?
It's funny. I go day to day with different emotions about it, but like I really miss playing, performing, because my entire life has been, like Alyson said, just being on a stage. And not only that, but for the bulk of my career, I was not only just a performer, but I was the music director for a lot of artists. So, I'm used to having like a team of 20 people that I work with, and that family that you see every day, and you speak the same language, and you riff off each other, and the energy is what keeps you going, and you sleep 2 hours a night. It doesn't make a difference because there's so much energy that just allows you to keep creating and stuff like that. But at the same time, I feel like one of those people that's like thinks about I don't know, one day I'm gonna when I retire, I'm gonna restore a 1958 Corvette. It's gonna be like this thing, like those dreams. Like, well, now we're in that moment. It's like, okay, well, now when I have time, we have time. So like Alyson and I have figured a way to really have an amazing hobby during this that will hopefully, and I'm pretty sure, I would say certainly, materialize into something that, like, timing wise, probably would be like, yeah, concerts are happening again, and we're ready. And we're going to be like, ba-ba, here we are. Like, and people are going to be like, how did you guys do that? We're like, well, we weren't sitting around moping, that's for sure. We were like busy. So I hope that that's the case. And even if it is a slow go when we finally start playing again, we definitely made the best use of this time.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Now, talk a little bit about the show. What kind of music is in there? Because I didn't mention that this is actually classical music and classical rock music. So how did you collaborate and get in opera music? How did you get the blend? You're seeing my hands. People on the air can't see my hands.
the musical fusion. How did we get the musical fusion?
Yeah.
I mean, Tony, you're our music director, so you take it away.
It's there's no real science to it, except for the fact that the science of it is that there is no science to it. we kind of talk about things, and we jot down on little pads or phones, great moments of oh, that's great, write that down, and then at some point it's just like you have this clarity. It's like, okay, well, really, what do we want to achieve with this piece? And we think about an emotion that would make the most sense to portray that everyone goes through in their life, and say, okay, these two songs mean the same thing. This is an opera song, this is a classic rock song, or this is a classical piece of music. They were all written with the same intention. How do we make these two work together? There has to be some, common denominator. And usually, without like putting a square peg in a round hole, there is. And I think the reason for that is most of the classic rock musicians ripped off all the classical masters in one way or another.
That even goes to literally the lyrics of the song "Rock Me Amadeus," a Falco song, talks about just that. Like really, if Mozart were alive today, he really would be. He would be a rock star. It's the equivalent. And there's a reason why classical music has endured the test of time, and it is what it is, because you hear those themes over and over coming back up in pop and rock music all the time. And so, as Tony said, yeah, sometimes it's not even that hard to put together. It's like, wait a minute, this goes with this. And then it sort of, at least as he said, sometimes the arrangements almost write themselves. I mean, he does it, but like, it's like, oh, aha, there's that theme that goes with this theme, musically.
And I don't want to use the word ripped off, but I mean, quite honestly, when something gets, like impregnated in your brain from, decades ago, it doesn't go away. Eventually it resurfaces, and you're sort of like, God, like this, it's amazing how well this works with that. It's more like, yeah, of course it works with that, because it was written with the same sort of mindset. Recently I'm working on a piece that is part of it is the Tchaikovsky Romeo and Juliet theme, and it involves an Alanis Morissette song called Uninvited. And one of the composers that I'm working on it with, we realized, I'm like, he must have listened to this entire score before they wrote this song, because it's not a coincidence that this part that we just used for this part of our song goes perfectly into the next part of what we're using for our song. It's like it must be the same thing. He must have been one of those people who just like, wait, hold on, did I lose you? I think
you just turned off your video.
Okay, hold on. That's because my alarm went off to remind me that we're doing this. Okay, but the idea is like that they just it's in your DNA after a while. If you're a musician from a young age, you can't help but repeat the best ideas of composers.
That's true. I mean, in terms of like musical education, I mean, I grew up playing piano, right? I started playing piano at age 4, and was trained classically, and I didn't aspire necessarily to become an opera singer. Most young kids don't. I wanted to be a pop star or a rock star. But, it happened that I became an opera singer because that's what my voice was attuned to. But I think this is the case for so many musicians that no matter whether they end up being a pop or a rock person or a jazz person or whatever, for so many of us, our foundations of our musical education started with learning classical music, and that's what we were taught in school. And so it makes sense that even somebody who might end up becoming a pop or a rock artist, that they have those classical influences always in their brain.
Right.
How a lot of us were educated in the very beginning. Yeah.
If you listen to the early Stones and Beatles, actually, and Led Zeppelin, it's borderline embarrassing how much they just literally was like, oh, you know what, we're taking that, and we're writing a song with it because it's just that good. And they're paying homage to like the best of the best. But at the same time, like not many people know that. They're like, oh my God, how did the Beatles come up with that? I'm like, just go back another 10 years and you'll hear it in like 5 songs. Yeah.
So when you were creating this, and I take it it's all done at this point, when you were creating Rock Me Amadeus, did you have Alyson's voice in mind for certain things, or what was the journey you took in bringing the music together?
Well, I wouldn't say, did I, Alyson and I kind of throw the ball back and forth on everything. And we kind of know what we want to achieve. So like writing for her voice is fairly easy because she's got a ridiculous range. So I never really ask her, can you hit this note? It's more like, do I want to torture her again? Or do I want to bring it down half step? But for the most part, like we throw the ball back and forth, and we know what we want to achieve. Now, that being said, like my repertoire of classical music, and especially opera, is somewhat limited. So I have to defer to her when it comes to like certain pieces in terms of what their popularity is, because we, at the end of the day, we want this to be great. We also want it to be incredibly accessible. And, there's a lot of this stuff. You can dive too deep and completely leave your audience behind. We don't want to do that. So I'm like, we just had this conversation yesterday about a song, and, she's like, and this happens to be like the most, way more popular than this song. I'm like, great. So, let's stay with the ones that everyone's going to know to a certain degree. And sometimes that does leave us in a bit of a, situation where it's like, well, this one's been done to death, or it's been, recorded by some artist that we're not that crazy about, and they kind of diluted it. But at the same time, it's like, if there's a song that we both know is iconic in her world, and the song is iconic in my world, it's very easy for us to say, okay, well, these ones passed the test. Let's put them in category A for like stuff we're going to do. But right. I think that we the two of us are pretty critical about what not to do. I think that's my point.
Absolutely. And I think, a big part of our show is how how just the experience of music makes people feel, and nostalgia. And now more than ever, it's like we want to put out music that makes people feel something and feel good. And there's a reason why certain songs are hits more so than others, because they resonate with people. Well, what makes it different, because it's not like we're a cover band or we're a cover show. It is the fusion. It's literally the fusion of two iconic songs together, or three or four in one thing, that has that element of surprise. And I think that's what's so interesting about this show, and something that other shows just don't do. So even if you've heard, the Roxanne by the Police a million times, you've certainly never heard it sung by the amazing vocalist in our cast, and then mashed up with one of the most famous opera arias ever. So it's like, whoa. And I think that's what's exciting about creating. And
that's a great segue into putting the song in right here. So thank you for introducing it.
I want to add one thing that Alyson just talked about is the most important thing about this is, a lot of people don't really ever spend the time to, analyze or like just let themselves, fall into the meaning of the lyrics of a song, even when they're learning the lyrics of a song, like just to be able to sing it. Like sometimes, songs are pretty much black and white, like, oh yeah, this song's about that. But like a song like Roxanne, a lot of people just sort of, like, oh yeah, it's about, this prostitute and stuff like that. But they don't see the love interest in it. You know what I mean? Like they don't really see how, like, and so that's what we're doing kind of sometimes illustrates that. It really takes people on a journey and they can see themselves in it in a way like, well, like, okay, I get it. Like, and it doesn't have to be about a prostitute or them to be one thing or another. It has to be with like, I've felt that emotion before.
Yes.
And I recognize where these guys are coming from.
Yeah. Unrequited or unattainable love. And definitely both songs have that for sure.
And the video is great too. So
thank you.
Thank you.
Alyson, what has been your favorite role in singing opera?
Ooh, I usually say it's like whichever one I'm currently doing. But no, seriously, because I just like I dive in so deeply, and I love roles that are an acting challenge and that really take you on some sort of like a dramatic arc. Because like as much as I am a singer, I'm a singing actor, and it's about telling story. The old days of just sort of like stand and sang, like gone. Like it's for a long time. It's much more emphasis like on the theater, and so I loved Carmen. I debuted Carmen in January of 2019, and I did 2 productions back to back, January through until beginning of March. And like, I was getting like thrown around on the stage. I had to learn how to play castanets. I had to dance flamenco. There were like obviously like beautiful seduction scenes, and then all these like intense like fiery scenes. And I just love the complexity of playing her. And another one I would say is also Madama Butterfly. Oof. On my opening night, she's such a dramatic character. And, she kills herself in the end. And I just put so much into that part. And I'll never forget, like, the curtain came down. I'm obviously dead on the floor. And I just immediately started bawling. I just, like, released all this emotion that was for the character, that was for Cho-Cho-san, And then I quickly had to snap out of it, like, get ready for curtain calls, get ready for your bow. But it was just this huge emotional release, and I love characters that I can sink my teeth into dramatically like that. So those are probably my top 2 in opera.
So, Tony, how do you take advantage of some of these characters that she's played and sung?
Well, I would say that it's more like I acknowledge her diversity. So try to I don't want to say exploit that, but for lack of a better word, say like, okay, we can do this because Alyson can pull it off. We can definitely do this because Alyson can pull it off, and she can, for all the dramas she's done, she can pull off, tongue-in-cheek comedy because she has the ability to just, be stoic and give a look, and that can be taken a lot of different ways. And when you find the right, avenue, say, oh yeah, in this moment, you're just going to do this. We did this in one of the last shows we were in, where just a tiny look was like enough for everyone on the stage to be, okay, don't laugh because you still got to sing. So I think, in answer to your question, I know that like she can do pretty much anything, and with a very dramatic flair. So it makes life easier. Let's put it that way.
And I should say, you asked if Tony has, when he's writing these arrangements, if he has my voice in mind, and I would say that. So first of all, we're a very tight knit cast, and everybody in the show is so special of the singers. Everybody has their unique tone, quality, ability, range, and because it's a small cast and because we know each other so well, I would say that has been a big part of choosing the repertoire as well, is keeping our individual cast members in mind and knowing what their strengths are and exploiting them, frankly. I mean, we have one girl who's she's one of, if not the most incredible belter I've ever heard in real life in my life. And I'm just like, okay, so we need to give her something that shows that off, you know? We have another girl in the cast who has this raspy but soft, but it like gets to your core. So it's like, then let's find songs that will exploit that. And everybody has their unique qualities that we try to highlight in finding these arrangements.
When you did the video for the Christmas special that is out on YouTube, I loved it because is that the whole cast? Was the whole cast involved in that, or is that just part of the cast? That's the
everyone.
Yeah, it was everybody, all except for one girl who couldn't be part of it because she's a part of another Christmas show. So by contract, she couldn't be a part of that video. But everybody else, yes, in the cast was featured there.
And it's the girl she was just talking about, the crazy belter.
The belter, yeah.
Ah, okay.
But she'll be featured. She'll be featured. Not the next one, but the one after.
February.
Yeah.
It's Christmas time. There's no need. At Christmas time, we let it light and replenish. And in our world of plenty, spread a smile of joy. Throw your arms around the world. At Christmas time, let's sing a prayer. Pray for the other ones. At Christmas time.
How many videos do you have planned to come out?
How long is COVID going?
Basically, our plan is to put out to do one video per month until we are at the point of doing live performances. And of course, that keeps getting pushed back every couple months. I mean, our initial goal, we thought, spring 2021. Then it was summer. Now it's looking like it's probably going to be mid-fall at the earliest.
Okay.
So we want to keep producing content and building our audience and getting people to know us before and excited about us and about the music before we hit the stage.
Well,
but that being said, I don't necessarily think we're going to stop at this point because we've gotten to such a great practice of doing this, and it serves more purposes than we thought it would. We first thought it was just going to be like a presence, on social media, but the reality is it does definitely dictate what works and what does not work. And we get to see it, and it will be a lot easier when COVID's over if we're all in the same place to film these things. So I can't imagine us not still releasing these videos because, first of all, it entices people. It's like it's like an infomercial, but it also gives us a really good idea of how the whole thing feels in terms of the tempo of it. And when we have to work with lighting directors and video people, it's the best thing to send them. Well, do you have anything to show me? Yeah, sure. We'll send them a video. This is what we did at home. Tell me if you can make it, come to life. So, yeah.
What have been the complications with trying to get these videos created with everybody in a different location?
So our first video was the Roxanne Carmen, and the people who were not in New York City were willing to quarantine and fly in and shoot on location throughout the city. It's just tough with our cast being spread out literally all over the world. Our violinist has been spending most of her time in Ireland, so getting her to New York or wherever is that's not going to happen. I think the biggest thing is some of us are better at this than others. I know how to set up a camera. I know how to have a ring light. I know how to have a background because I've had to do so many of these Zoom things and whatever. And the learning curve for those who are not used to shooting themselves or have the equipment. So it's, if we, like for the holiday video, everybody shot their own footage of themselves on their camera. And so getting all of the footage to somehow look universal in terms of quality and whatnot, that's a challenge. So I'm very thankful to our video editors because they really are the ones who have to like put it all together. But it's going to be a while until until everybody feels safe or comfortable, getting on airplanes, flying to a city, being, on a soundstage or, wherever, or on a set, and being able to record together. So film together rather. So doing it remotely, but we're finding, little tricks and ways to make it work.
Yeah, I'm very fascinated by it, and it just, so many people have been doing this. It's just fun to see what you're doing and building up some hype for the show. Has it generated even more? Or maybe we can put this into the show. Maybe we can do that. Like, is it finished? I guess is my real question. Is the Tony shaking his head?
It is not finished. It is far from finished. Truth be told, we had a meeting last night, myself and Alyson and a good friend of mine, Matt Stiller, who's a writer. We just started messing with the idea of a story that we will incorporate in this. And I'm not going to give any of this away, but it opened up a lot of, avenues of thought. It also, almost put us all in the hospital for hypothermia. It was so cold out, but we were just discussing the possibilities of like this, having this fall into a storyline, so that what happens as a result of that is, first of all, it dictates what songs will do to help tell the story, and it also dictates how we will sell this this entire show to someone within the confines of like a log line, like one sentence. So I think where we started was a great place in terms of doing these videos to, bring public awareness to, this, our new venture, and get, start building a following, which we have definitely been doing. But now we're sort of streamlining and saying, okay, let's get very specific about what we are, so that when we finish, there is absolutely no question as to how this should look on stage, how it should be lit, how it should sound, what the beginning looks like, what the end looks like. And it's a full package that when we present it to a booking agency, they're going to be like, yeah, we know all about you. We've been following you guys for a year. It's amazing. So I think we're not done with it, to answer your question, but we turned the corner in terms of how this is going to be finished.
Yeah. And I think, this is a new show. It's a new thing. So it is a learning process for everybody involved. Although Tony and I have obviously been in the industry for a very long time, we are trying to launch something during a pandemic. We cannot put something live in front of people. It is important to see then what is it that they are reacting to. And so we've been sort of taking notes on the certain things and the visual aspects, that people are drawn to and that they're excited about. So that when we are putting together the physical production, we kind of already know what our audience is hungry to see. And I think shows, there aren't any shows really that are similar to ours, but like any show that sort of uses like music from the past or nostalgia, and sometimes it's just sort of get up there, stand, whatever, and then perform. What we do know is that people identify more and are drawn in more when there is a story to follow. And I don't mean like a Broadway musical that has like a book and a set script or something like that. But people like to go on a journey because we're not just a concert. It's different. We're in between a concert and a show like that has a book. We're somewhere in between. And so finding that balance, as Tony said, is we're in that process right now of finding exactly where we're in that nook. We fit in what we have to do.
When you were approaching other artists to join this production, how did you have people in mind right away that you said, let's see if so and so wants to do this, or did word get out that, and somebody, people come to you and say, I'm interested in doing that?
I think it's more about, we kind of knew what the particular components needed to be. Like we needed this specific type, this specific type. So between the two of us, we kind of knew a certain amount of, I hate to use the term, A-list musicians, but we did. And we were like, okay, I know this person who's like, definitely fits in this mold. And you just reach out to them. And the funny thing is, can't imagine anyone saying no to this, because it's an expression of themselves and an expression of something they usually don't get a chance to do. That, it's kind of liberating. They can be, they're sort of an actor in a way, but at the same time, they're also just a singer, performer. But at the same time, they're a contributor. They in terms of some sort of ownership in the show, meaning like we're not just dictating all the shots, myself and Alyson, although we oversee everything and we kind of like make all the final decisions. Like we reach out to all the people that we've hired and say, hey, listen, you guys have to deliver this show. We want ideas, because I think I know what's best for your voice, but if I claim to know what's better for your voice more than you do, I'd be a fool to say that. So like, it's great, having these people and they jump at the chance and like, yeah, of course I want to do this. Are you kidding me? It's like a dream come true.
Yeah, and I think, so much is about finding even just like the personality types that are right for this kind of a show. Mm. And because it is so diverse musically and requires so much of all of the singers, you have to be that person that's like, yeah, I'm willing to step out of the box. I'm willing to be in multiple boxes, There was one person who was not available that we had reached out to be a part of the show. And immediately I said, well, Tony, there's really only one other person that I can think of to fill the male opera singer role in the show. And Tony had never met him, had never talked to him, had never seen a video of him, nothing. But I've worked with him for, I don't know, we've worked together since 2005 or 2006, and he's one of my like best friends. And I'm like, I'm telling you, this is our guy. I don't know any other opera singer that has the personality and the wherewithal for this type of a show. Oh, and by the way, can also sing pop and rock. Casual, but is literally an A-list opera star. And so we had a Zoom introduction, and the two of them just like hit it off so well. And I mean, he sent me a text the other night. He was like, I'm just so excited about this show, Alyson. So he's like the newest one to the show, but just everybody's excited to create and to bring this to life. And I think that's a big part of it.
Well, I think it's really, Alyson, I think what's really cool about it, we talked about this a little bit last night, it's like, it's starting to become, now that we're a few videos deep, it's starting to become a show, and you can sort of start seeing it from a stage perspective, because up until now we've been just seeing it from a, sending out emails and like getting files from people perspective, which is, I mean, it's great. Don't get me wrong, because seeing the final product is amazing. But at the same time, it's like, it's not the same as standing on a stage and saying, holy God, look at the look on their faces. We actually did that. I think everyone in our cast is seeing that, not just you and I. I think they're all starting to say the light at the end of the tunnel, like, wow, when we actually do this on stage, it's going to be ridiculous, because we're all going to look back and say, remember all those months we were like sending files back and forth and singing in our closets and shooting ourselves with our iPhones, and here we are with a sold out show. Holy Christ, incredible. So I think that's a really good place to be.
Yeah, there are some people in the cast who've actually never met in person. They've only met each other via like a Zoom, or have seen the person perform in these videos. They've never actually met in real life. And, it's just so great to see everybody's reaction, like, whoa, that guy, that Tony Vincent, well, he really has a look, he has a vibe about him, he has a thing. And it's like, oh yeah, wait till you meet him and perform with him in real life, and say about Mairead or about anybody in the cast. And it's so great to see everybody, just like come together in that way and see the talent shine through the screen, because it's going to be even more.
And what's the website they can go to see these videos?
They can go to rockmeamadeuslive.com.
Okay.
And that's also our YouTube channel is Rock Me Amadeus. Instagram, Facebook, same thing, Rock Me Amadeus Live.
And Tony, I cut you off. I'm sorry. What were you going to say?
No. I was just going to say, I just remember our bass player, Luis Guzman's response to the first video, the Roxanne video. Because, you know, his perspective was like, hey, dude, can you lay a bass on this? And that was it. And it was just a track. And then he saw the video, and he was just like, he wrote underneath it. I can't even imagine how long this took to put together. It was just like, yeah, because you're sitting there, you know, playing bass on it, and then you send it back like, oh, well, cool, we're doing a little song. And then the next thing he sees is this full production video. And I think in his mind, he was like, wait a minute, when did they start this? Like, so I love the idea that like our entire cast is now like really engaged in the process of like just how intense this is going to be when we finally do get to do a live show.
Yeah.
And when did you actually start putting this together? I know it was since COVID started, but or was it an idea you had even before COVID?
Yeah,
Alyson.
Yeah.
Yeah, you tell it. Start with the meeting in Florida. That was like the perfect launch pad for this.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, Tony and I had been talking about it all throughout the summer of 2019, and but maybe not in earnest. Just sort of like, we need to do something. And it was the end of the summer. I said, you know what? Let's just do this thing. Let's start our own show. I was with Tony and his wife and his son, and like, yeah, let's do it. We're going to create our own show. No more sort of talking about the idea. Months, put together a very intense and specific business plan and proposal. And we flew down in January. We're invited to fly down to Tampa to meet with our hopeful and potential investor. It was a 5-hour long meeting that ended in a wonderful steak dinner and a toast and a handshake saying, I'm in, let's do it. And so that was the end of January. We just left Florida being so excited and started interviewing marketing agencies and PR firms and setting up the website, all of that. For what, a month and a half later, COVID.
All bets were off.
And that was it. And we got the call that was like, hey guys, got to press pause, as everybody did. Especially, you know, investors in new projects. And we said, we completely understand. And a few months went by, and then Tony and I were on the phone, and he said, you know what? We need to use this to our advantage. Like,
actually, what I said to you was I was doing these boredom videos. Like, I was waking up in the morning and doing, like, guitar solos for other guitarists and putting them online. Like, okay, I never had the time to learn this solo, so here it is. And me on and then eventually that blossomed into me and 3 other guys doing the same thing, like, and putting a whole song together. And then all of a sudden a light bulb went off, and I called Alyson. I'm like, so I've been doing this weird, like, kind of thing where we make a song and we all paste our videos together and make it look like we're in the same place. And all of a sudden I was like, why can't we do that? And then boom, like the 2 of us ran with it like it was like a relay race. It was like, out of the box, boom, we'll do this.
And it was, and you know, enough sort of time had passed. I think it had settled in at that point, because now this was like in May, I want to say, in May when we had this conversation. It had really set in at that point, like, we are in this. And I mean, set in not just for the music industry, but I think the world in general, like, this is going to be the state of affairs now for a long time. And so we reached back out to our investor and said, look, we shouldn't sit and do nothing. We can create, we can be a presence online, we can do the videos better than other people are doing them. And it was very intentional, I should say, that especially with our first one with Roxanne Carmen, that it not look like a typical sort of COVID Zoom video where it's just a bunch of people in boxes. We said,
and it doesn't look that way at all. It's
right. And, you know, careful to kind of, you know, if there was somebody walking behind us or in a shot, like with a mask, like take that out of the shot. We wanted it to look as sort of normal and timeless as possible. And I think that was so hard. It was hard for, I think, a lot of people to do. You know, they would make a video, but then your pianist is sitting there with his mask on or whatever. It's just very time specific. We're like, no, I think we can put out something that represents our show and that is different and is like so different from these little boxes videos that everybody's doing. And so that's been that's really been our mission. And that the response from the first video was so encouraging. And yeah, so it's just sort of driven us to keep doing more.
Yeah, it's Roxanne Carmen, I think is the name of the video.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's I've watched that and it just amazed. So you actually had the actors and the singers here in New York to record to do all that?
Yes. So myself and Tony are New York based. Mairead, she shot all of her footage in Ireland.
Oh, okay.
Yes, and then Toby and Tony live in Nashville and LA respectively, and they did fly in.
They flew in. Okay.
That shoot, and so it was shot all throughout New York and Brooklyn, and then though,
and some in this very apartment,
some in that exact apartment, and then once we had a first edit, because I will say this about Tony and I, it's so funny because we're so like different, but we're meticulous and we're perfectionists, and we don't want to put out anything that we don't think represents us, like to the best. And we got a first edit of the video, and we're like, there's something missing, not quite right. So we actually went back to the drawing board. We had a second weekend of filming more footage all throughout New York City. And then because the guys were already back where they lived, we actually asked Toby if he could film himself in LA. And so all the shots of him walking down the street, that's downtown LA, combined with some of the New York shots. And then again, thanks to great editing, they made it work.
Yeah,
but I have to say that also, it's one of those serendipitous moments when it comes to like things happen for a reason. I love the shots that Toby shot in LA by himself. They have a different quality than the rest of the video, and somehow because it was a different day, it feels a little different, and it needed to feel different because when the first cut came in, it felt a little too, for lack of a better word, incestuous. It felt like everybody was in the same set together, but they're not supposed to be. They're supposed to be in different parts of the city.
Different mindsets, right? Exactly.
Right, but when we had to go back and reshoot, I'm like, okay, now it really looks like there's a complete distance between them, and that feels right. So, yeah. and it was really frustrating for me because I hadn't seen either one of these two guys in so long, and they were in New York in my apartment, and I was upstate because it was my son's birthday, and I couldn't come down that day. I was like, oh my God, I can't believe I'm missing all the action. But it all worked out for the best because we got really great results, and everybody rose to the occasion. So that's what it's all about.
Yeah.
And how many videos have you done? I've seen the Roxanne Carmen one. I've seen the Christmas one. Did one come out yet for January?
No, that is coming out soon. We are in the final editing stages of that one, so we're hoping either over this weekend or beginning of next week we'll have our January video out. Very much a nod to like it's a new year, new beginnings. Obviously, 2020 was so rough. Even the beginning of 2021 has been rather tumultuous. And so we really wanted to put together something that spoke to optimism and hope and the idea and a celebratory, notion of moving forward. And so, the finishing touches are being put on that video. And we also have a teaser video that is like a quick 1-minute teaser that we put out back in September to announce the show.
You can say what it is, the songs.
Oh, the songs for our upcoming video. It's a mashup of Beethoven's 9 Ode to Joy with Journey's Don't Stop Believin'.
it's a wonderful sounding show, and all the actors and singers and performers that I've been watching, I'm just amazed, and I'm like, okay, when is it coming out? When is it coming out?
When it comes out, I will say this much. I think people are going to be extremely engaged in it and see it several times, because I think it's going to be a reflection of everyone, what they go through in their life from the moment they're, young adolescents to like being a full-grown adult. I think it really speaks to a lot of people, and in a positive way that, like, look, everything you do in your life definitely has a meaning, and like, you just have to embrace it and celebrate it. I think that what we're choosing song-wise is definitely pinpointing things that myself and Alyson and the cast have all experienced, and that's why we've asked them to contribute. And their contributions, when they say something, it's not random. It's like somebody picks a song. It's generally because they have a deep-rooted feeling in that. So I think it's going to be something that everyone can relate to, and that's what all the shows that are the most successful usually are about. That you walk back and you say, you got to see this show. Oh my God, it just made me feel so good. That kind of thing.
Because music really is that universal language. And I think, to be able to just tap into that human condition through music and make people feel something, like that is the goal of the show. And I think it really does that.
Mm-hmm.
Tony, real quick, since you've produced a lot and put on a lot of different shows around New York, as far as I understand, how has this been for you? I mean, everything shut down. So what have you been doing aside from Rock Me Amadeus?
I've been working with like a lot of individual indie artists and producing stuff for them. I actually work with another person, and then an artist is a producer. He's putting on another, like a musical, but it's way different than what we're doing. And I've been composing music for him. So it's been a lot of work in familiar areas that relate to Rock Me Amadeus, and a lot of work that's familiar with what my past was, which is working with a lot of different pop artists. So I've been busy. The only thing about it that really, is like not that gratifying is like it's me working by myself, or if I'm lucky, once in a while I get to work, with one or two other people. I was working with Billy Joel's daughter. We're actually in the middle of doing something right now, and we had to go through this whole thing where we in a room and with social distancing, and it's just me, her, and the engineer, and my partner Tommy Burns. And it's okay, but at the same time, it's not what music is to me. It's not what music is to Alyson. Music is a collaboration on every level, And when you hit that stride, when you make that moment of a song or a moment in a song, whatever it is, that somebody comes up with an idea and it makes you go, "Oh my God, that's amazing!" The first thing you think about doing is high-fiving and hugging each other and saying, "Oh, this is incredible," and that's all gone. So, I'm grateful to be able to do something in the field that I've been doing for my entire life, but I can't wait till it goes back to where all of us hanging out in a room together and just partying and making music. That's really how the best music comes around. Everybody just being able to shout out and hug each other and say, "Great work. Let's go grab a beer."
Well, Alyson, I've been talking with Alyson Cambridge and Tony Bruno today. They're the producers of Rock Me Amadeus. I got a quick question, though. Since everybody's been quarantined, do you have a guilty pleasure that you've been doing, or like TV shows or movies or none of that?
I am mildly addicted to the Bachelor and Bachelorette franchise. So I've been keeping up on that. I guess that would be a guilty pleasure. I'm trying not to indulge in too many guilty pleasures or vices. I'm trying to, as Tony knows, I swear, half the time we have phone calls, I'm running. I'm outside running. I'm a runner. And so I'm like, I've been trying to stick with that even in this like bone chilling weather. to still like stay fit and active, even though we've been locked down, can't go to gyms and stuff like that.
Do you see a lot of other people out still running too? Do you see other runners?
Yeah. I mean, and it's usually, it's the hardcore runners. And I tried one day to go to the gym when they opened. And let me tell you, running on a treadmill with a mask is the most disgusting thing ever. And I was like, I will never do that again. So I just invested in many layers and warm things from Lululemon. And I just like layer up, and I'm out in the cold.
Do you run with a mask? So you don't run with a mask when
I get to the park, and so I run in Riverside Park, and it's not very popular. You can maintain social distance, but no, I can't run with a mask. But then as soon as I exit the park, then it goes back on. Yeah.
My guilty pleasure, I'm going to say it because it's a shout out to one of our cast members. So aside from espresso martinis, my guilty pleasure has been with my son and my wife. We finished it, unfortunately. We completely devoured Cobra Kai, the series. Yeah, the series that finished the Karate Kid trilogy. And I have to say, in season 3, episode 5, none other than one of our cast members, Dee Snider from Twisted Sister, all of a sudden he's in it without telling me, and I'm like, what? Literally. It was so cool, so I was very excited to see that. So I have to say, if you haven't seen it,
I haven't. I know of it, but I haven't seen it. Yeah.
It's a good watch. It really is.
Well, thank you very much for being on Tea with Thee. I really enjoyed speaking with you. I'm so looking forward to seeing Rock Me Amadeus come out in New York, and I hope you're saying now that it's pushed off to the fall.
That's probable. All of my, like I said, all of my spring and summer contracts have already been canceled. So I'm thinking if that's an indication of what my agents tell me about my own just normal singing career, that it's probably going to be in the fall. Yeah.
I'm going to go out on a limb here and say that the next time we see each other, it will be in person, backstage at the Broadway Theater.
Ooh.
All right. You heard it here first, folks.
You've been listening to Tea with Thee on WXCi. Stay tuned for more great music. Thank you very much for being on the show and letting me record this. And Alyson, you look terrific. I just threw on a turtleneck just to look like I was half human.
Turtleneck.
I'm staring at her and Caitlin Collins on CNN, who wears nothing but a turtleneck.
They're great.
Yeah, they are. They're great. Thank you so much for having us and for asking really, really great questions.
Oh, you're welcome.
Yeah.
And if you want to, send me a shout out or something when you finally do have a booking, I'll be glad to promo. We'll be glad to promo it on the station. So
absolutely, we'll do.
No, absolutely. And I have one last thing to say. Did I win my bet about Alyson?
Yes, you did. Yes.
Wait, what was the bet? What was the bet?
He can tell you.
You told me that this was not this is only going to be audio, and that you knew. And I'm like, doesn't matter. Alyson is going to be completely dialed in, lighting, makeup, hair, the whole bit.
Yeah, Beatrice called me like at 6:30 and said, Alyson's concerned about the video. And I said, well, I'm not using the video. I'm just using the audio. But and it's nice to have the video to, while we're doing the interview.
Well, it's way more fun.
Yeah, it's way more fun to see people. And but I was like, wait, it's called video interview, but I thought it was just for radio, so I'm so confused. I was like, hair and makeup, here we go. Just in case.
You look terrific.
Oh, well, thank you. It's very sweet of you. Well, thank you so much. This is great. And we can't wait to promote it when it airs. And
Yep.
All right.
Great. Thank you, guys.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thanks so much. Bye.
Have a great night.